Hello, YouTube. In today's video, we're back with my man, Dire Trip here for another very unfortunate, very tragic case today. Just from reading the title. Yeah, let me just read the title of today's case we're going to cover. The mysteries behind the worst massacre in modern Austrian history. This video really caught my attention. For one, it's like one of his newer videos, but two, we haven't really covered a lot of Austrian shootings, you know? Usually it's a lot of Western stuff. Like, let's just keep it a stack. America, the West in general, is where most of these massacres happen. You don't see too much of it in Europe. So yeah, when I saw Austrian history, I was like, oh, whoa, let me learn about that. And then the other thing that low-key kind of stuck out to me is, I mean, just look at them, bro. Like, just look at them. They have like the Armin hairstyle from Attack on Titan. I don't even know like what this person is. Do you think it's a girl? Do you think it's a boy? It is very rare for girls to do mass shootings, but it's definitely not unheard of, as we've seen in my videos.
Europe isn't often associated with the idea of mass violence carried out on schools, although it does happen more often than you might think.
It's kind of funny how we were just talking about how Europe isn't really thought about when it comes to shootings, and Dire Trip is addressing that very same point right now.
Although it does happen more often than you might think. Today's story is a prime example of that, with a 21-year-old man returning to his own school and carrying out the deadliest rampage in modern Austrian history.
21-year-old man? Dude, I'm gonna be so honest with you. I thought this was like a 16-year-old boy or something. I think it's the hair. I think it's probably the hair that got me.
Most mass shooters out there tend to leave behind some sort of journal, video diary, or manifesto in order to give you some insight as to what their motivation actually is in carrying out their attack. After all, the whole point is usually that they have some sort of message to spread in one way or another. It isn't often that they leave behind virtually nothing at all and leave everyone out there to kind of try to piece together the reasons as to why they even carried out the shooting in the first place. Arthur Eckleitner was born on June 23, 2003 in Hartberg, a city in Styria, Austria, to an Austrian mother and an Armenian father. The marriage between his parents didn't last, with them eventually splitting up and living in separate homes. Arthur ended up living with his mother for the majority of his life in and around the Graz-Umgebung district in Styria. Regardless of the problems with his parents, Arthur was still seen to be a happy kid while he was young. He was known to be into PC gaming specifically. In 2015, when he was around 12 years old, he started a YouTube channel. The channel, simply titled Arthur Eckleitner 3860, would only come to host a couple of videos. In one video uploaded on February 8, 2015 called
FNAF? That Foxy?
In one video uploaded on February 8, 2015 called Ich Bin's, or It's Me, he donned a mask from the Five Nights at Freddy's series and spoke of his other YouTube channel. He wanted to redirect people from the other channel to this one.
Hallo und herzlich willkommen. Und heute wollte ich euch einfach nur zeigen. Ich lade die Minecraft-Videos auf den Kanal Das wisst ihr halt meinen Namen. Und damit ich euch beweisen kann, dass ich der Pirate Fox LP bin, habe ich einfach mal die Maske aufgezogen.
This other channel was one called Pirate Fox LP that he used during Minecraft collab videos with other YouTubers at the time. Throughout these collaborative videos, he would actually use his real name while streaming. Eventually, it came time for Arthur to attend secondary school. In 2017, he began attending the NMS Riger School, but only stuck around for 1 year. He then began attending a school that's name translates to, simply, Vocational School for Economic Careers, but he only stayed there for 1 year as well. It was after these two schools that he attended the Borg Dreienschützengasse, a high school in Graz that was geared towards preparing students to go on to a university. Arthur had trouble with his studies, even having to repeat the 6th grade. It isn't known exactly as to why his grades were so bad, but many have noted that Arthur was unlikely to participate in anything involving school. Some of his teachers have said that he was smart but very lazy. One of the only areas where Arthur would be really active would be the online gaming scene.
Classic excuse, by the way. Classic excuse. You know, I'm really smart. I'm just really, really lazy. Like, I think that's kind of cope. Like, I think you're just a fucking idiot.
Some of his teachers have said that he was smart but very lazy. One of the only areas where Arthur would be really active would be the online gaming scene. In particular, he was into playing Valorant. A friend of his who later spoke to the media said that Arthur had become a very introverted person that lived a secluded life and lived out most of his days on the internet. His greatest passion had really become first-person shooter games in general. As seen in screenshots of his Steam library, he had logged a lot of hours into various different Call of Duty and Counter-Strike games. This scene was really the only place that he maintained much human contact.
Okay, I'm not gonna pull a boomer moment right now where I'm like, the video games, but something I will take note of also, obviously not every CSGO player is like one of these incel 4chan people, like racist people that end up to be school shooters. Like not every CS player ends up being like this, but I swear to God, so many of these like alt-right, like racist, and we don't even know if he's racist yet, by the way. I'm just kind of jumping the gun here, but these like troubled kids oftentimes end up being into CS. I don't know why. Like it's always Counter-Strike.
He had logged a lot of hours into various different Call of Duty and Counter-Strike games. This scene was really the only place that he maintained much human contact. However, this friend noted that, while they did talk online, Arthur never seemed angry or resentful to anyone. Another friend of Arthur's, called only Sebastian in the media, said that they met online while playing Valorant. Over time, they became friends before meeting up in person. Eventually, they played together in a tournament for the game. He was likely speaking of Arthur's very short stint playing for a Valorant esports team, as he replaced another one of their teammates last minute when he couldn't attend the event.
Holy hair.
Sebastian said of Arthur, "We perceived him as very shy and reserved. He had difficulty expressing his feelings." They did go on to win the tournament, with Sebastian saying, "He was so happy when we won the competition in Graz and we all met up in person." Little did anyone know, Arthur wasn't quite so wholesome behind the scenes. In more private circles online, he had grown very interested in mass killings, especially school shootings. It doesn't appear he was very active online among the kinds of circles which might discuss these crimes in a glorified fashion. While he did have an account on Roblox, it showed very little activity in general. He had a Tumblr account as well, but he rarely ever used it. Much of Arthur's journey down this path is a complete mystery. Some of the first clues that Arthur was taking an interest in this sort of thing were evident in a few changes to his online accounts. Arthur, more than any other mass killer, became interested in Dylan Klebold.
Columbine, there we go. Oh my God, like clockwork. These guys are all just bots, bro. Carbon copies of each other.
Arthur, more than any other mass killer, became interested in Dylan Klebold, one of the shooters from the Columbine massacre. Dylan has, over the years, become somewhat of a blank slate character that other shooters or shooter sympathizers who suffer from depression project themselves onto. The other shooter, Eric Harris, is often described as being a psychopath and seen as less relatable to most. Dylan is often seen as the more relatable of the two, with him having so many fans that his own parents were disturbed by the amount of fan letters they received addressed to him after his death. While Arthur never spoke exactly as to why he was so interested in Dylan Klebold, he made his interest obvious in many ways. Up until the year 2019, Arthur's YouTube channel had been dedicated to clips from different first-person shooter games and notably featured a much more bright and positive look. However, at some point he wiped the channel completely, removing all of the content and the bio. All he left behind was a profile picture, a picture that he changed to a still image of Dylan Klebold from the Columbine security footage.
Try hard. It's all the same shit every time. Look at me. I like Columbine. Look at me. I'm so dark. I'm so edgy. Yeah.
Arthur's presence on Discord was similar as well. Very, very few of his Discord messages have ever surfaced. However, there is a screenshot of his profile where we can see that he had changed his profile picture to a photo of Dylan's corpse on the floor of the Columbine High School library after the massacre had ended. It isn't known exactly as to why Arthur developed such a fascination with mass shooters in the first place. While it has been said that he was bullied in school, these claims have never been confirmed, and in the grand scheme of things have been attested to very few times. Arthur did make his distaste for school obvious in another way, however.
Yeah, for real. Somebody in chat says, seriously, it's like the most morbid game of bingo, checking off all the boxes. Dude, yeah, because like all of these shooters follow the same exact blueprints. Like, Columbine, bad grades in school, no friends.
In 2022, he dropped out of his school in Graz, no longer interested in continuing his schooling there. Back at home, Arthur continued to spend a lot of time on Minecraft. He played on a large server under the username Zinni, a name that he would come to use for most of his accounts. Many have pointed out that nearly all of the skins he used for his character were femboys. Nothing about Arthur's sexuality or whether or not he actually considered himself to be a femboy is actually known. Given that femboys had reached peak meme status around this time, it may have meant nothing.
A lot of people did LARP Catboys. Like, what year was this again? What years? 2020? Is that what it said right there? Bro, even my ass, low-key, like, okay, before I say what I'm about to say, yeah, I'm pretty sure his sexuality was, he was probably just like straight or something like that. I don't think him using femboy skins and stuff was any indication of his sexuality. But what I will say, bro, so many people were LARPing femboyism for views and clicks, including me. My ass was on that shit because of anime TikTok. I swear, anime TikTok and like cosplayers and all that shit, everybody hopped on that Catboy shit for easy views. I did that shit too. I wore cat ears. I wore the maid outfit. So that's how I know he was still straight. Like, he was probably just straight and LARPing as a Catboy, because I speak from experience, bro.
The skins he used for his character were femboys. Nothing about Arthur's sexuality or whether or not he actually considered himself to be a femboy is actually known. Given that femboys had reached peak meme status around this time, it may have meant nothing. Starting in 2023, Arthur began taking an apprenticeship as an office clerk for a while. The details as to what exactly this entailed haven't been made known, but he never did go on to make a career out of it. Arthur, now even more unsure of what to do in life, decided to take his interest in first-person shooters and weaponry and join the military. He attempted to enlist into the Austrian armed forces, but he wouldn't have much luck in that endeavor. As part of his enlistment, he was forced to undergo a psychiatric evaluation. Upon its completion, the military deemed him mentally unfit for service. The military hasn't, and most likely never will, release the records that show exactly how they came to this decision.
Bro, how do you take a test and fail to enroll in the military? Doesn't the military accept anybody? How the fuck you fail to get in? How stupid you gotta be?
However, they have said that he lacked resilience. Specifically, they said this was related to, quote, how he behaves in the face of danger, in the face of potential danger, and how he behaves in the company of others. With that failing, Arthur decided to attend a local vocational school. At this school, he was described as being a short boy with disheveled hair who always wore headphones. He was known to walk into class with a hunched-over posture, do whatever he needed to do, and go straight home in the same fashion. He did talk to his classmates at the school from time to time. One of them described him by saying, Arthur was quiet and shy. The seat next to him was free on the first day of school, so I sat down next to him. At first, we didn't speak to each other for weeks, but after a while I got along well with him. However, the two of them weren't known to have any deep conversations in particular. He added, he often told me about his cat, whom he loved very much and spoke little. This friend noted that Arthur seemed to have few hobbies and spent most of his time playing alone.
There you go. He was alone. Nobody want to play with me. Nobody want to play. There's another checkbox.
This friend noted that Arthur seemed to have few hobbies and spent most of his time playing alone. He said, of what he would do, playing PC or football outside, although he said he always played alone. I felt sorry for him. In December of 2024, for reasons unknown, Arthur deregistered himself from various different esports websites. He deleted most of his contacts online, no longer being able to talk to any of his friends that he had known for years, some of them for around a decade. He had effectively chosen to isolate himself from any and all of society.
See, but that's why I get annoyed at it. That's why I poke so much fun at it. Like, loneliness isn't a funny thing. I struggle with that shit sometimes, right? We all feel lonely sometimes. But these people, these kids that end up being a shooter, they do it to themselves, you know? Like, they push people away. They isolate themselves. Like, this kid literally went through the trouble of removing even his virtual friends. So it's like, yeah.
He had effectively chosen to isolate himself from any and all of society. Arthur left the vocational school the next month in January. While he hadn't had much to say about his time at the school, he did say that he didn't feel comfortable there. With nowhere to go, nothing to do, and nobody to speak to, Arthur was left with nothing to do but spiral even further. Almost all of his time was spent at his home in a family housing estate in a suburb south of Graz. He lived with his mom on the ground floor of one of the buildings. It was a very average apartment, just big enough for the small family. By this point, they had been living there for about 5 years. Arthur's neighbors have spoken about how nice his mother was and how unremarkable he seemed to be. A woman who lived in the building had a son his age, but said that Arthur never bothered to speak to him.
Yeah, somebody in chat raises a pretty good point. I feel like a lot of them romanticize feeling lonely. And I 1000% agree. Not everybody's like this, but I feel like a lot of these shooters, there's like something about being alone, like being the lone wolf. Nobody gets you. You're eating alone. You have your headphones on like this kid. There's almost like an aesthetic to it, to feeling sad, to feeling alone, being able to say you have no friends. Like, they almost get off on being pitiful. It's weird. Like, it's a really weird thing. It is romanticizing loneliness. And you can kind of see it in his actions. Like, he pushed people away for no reason, which led him down this path. Like, it's almost like he liked going deeper and deeper into despair. He was already sad before this, by the way. He just wanted to make himself more sad.
But said that Arthur never bothered to speak to him. She said, "He was completely withdrawn. He wore his large headphones and a backpack when he went in and out. He didn't greet anyone, but he was never unpleasant in any way." An older neighbor nearby has described Arthur's mom as a very nice lady who she would often make small talk with while they were both outside watering their flowers. She noted that she never heard a single raised voice coming from their apartment. All she remembered of Arthur was that he was short, thin, and had long, darker hair that often hid his face. There is some evidence that Arthur had tried to find a job around this time. He sent his resume out to at least one company in the area, hoping to be hired. In his resume photo, he looked notably much more clean-cut than he did at any other point, with his hair combed neatly to the sides and a smile on his face. But seeing no success, Arthur only began to spiral further. He decided that he would attempt to get a few weapons for himself. He wanted both a shotgun and a handgun. Given that he was now 21 years old and had no prior convictions, it was very possible that he could get his hands on them. One hurdle that he would have to pass would be another mental health evaluation. Knowing that he had already previously failed an examination while attempting to join the military, this was the biggest risk for a roadblock in his plans. He had no choice but to go through with it and underwent the evaluation in March of 2025.
Dude, yeah, y'all are making really good points right now in chat. Like, you guys are really addressing things that just don't make sense. So somebody says, so it seems like his parents were okay people and didn't influence this for once. Yeah, like, for the most part, it seems like he had a pretty okay environment, albeit a little boring.
He had no choice but to go through with it and underwent the evaluation in March of 2025. Arthur was able to pass the evaluation this time around, with that likely being because the criteria for passing each test would have been significantly different. In April of 2025, he was able to get himself a firearms ownership card. While this wouldn't be a license to carry a weapon, it did allow him to purchase one. The first gun he went out and bought was a shotgun, shortly after getting his card.
And here we go. This is where we're gonna start getting into, you know, the ideation of shooting up a school. He now has a weapon.
He was able to get the gun relatively easily from a local gun dealer. To learn how to use it, he began attending a shooting club in Graz, engaging in a bit of target practice. In the middle of May, he once again went out to buy another, this time getting himself a Glock handgun. Arthur took to Tumblr to brag about his purchases. Using a photo of himself dressed up in a bit of gear as a profile picture, he didn't interact with other people much or even like many posts. One of his likes was on a piece of footage of Dylan Klebold smashing a bicycle with a hammer, something he had made for his video production class. The only other thing that he liked was a picture of the Dnipropetrovsk maniacs posing with their hammers. He only made 2 posts himself. One of them was a video of Dylan Klebold acting in his Hitman for Hire video, showing the outtakes that he had shared.
It's all Columbine. It's always Columbine.
His only original post would be the most notable. He showed both of the guns he had purchased, along with the line, "Very early birthday present for myself." With that, Arthur began to plan his own massacre. Starting in late May, he made a playlist on Spotify consisting entirely of KMFDM music. KMFDM is a German industrial band that is known for its association with school shooters, thanks to it being one of the favorite bands of the Columbine shooters.
Bro, what the fuck is his face? What the fuck is this face that he's doing? He looks uncanny. These people don't look like humans, which makes sense because they're not. They're subhuman. Why is his mouth like that? He looks like an SCP. He looks like something straight out of the Walton Files.
Several of the songs on the playlist, like Son of a Gun and Adios, were even mentioned directly by the shooters. Arthur came up with his target location fairly quickly, that being the Borg Dreierschützengasse that he had previously dropped out of. Very little is known as to why he targeted this school specifically, but it may have been due to his hatred of one of the teachers in particular. He would target his old classroom specifically while making plans to continue the attack across the 2nd and 3rd floors of the school. Originally, he had wanted to bomb the school, but it doesn't seem that he ever figured out how to do that and abandoned the plan fairly quickly. He had attempted to make a pipe bomb, much like Dylan Klebold used in his own attack, but never ended up completing it. While the bomb he made did have all of the necessary components to function, it was said that he never finished it to the point of being operational. Arthur carefully planned out his attack across the 2 floors of the school, making meticulous plans from the path he would take down to what time he would attack each area and how long each phase would last. One thing that he didn't note within his plans was the date that the attack would take place. That particular piece of the puzzle seemed to have still been up in the air to him. Arthur never did get the license to actually carry his guns. Legally, he was only allowed to possess them. He would only be able to transport them to other areas, such as the shooting range in a locked container. However, lacking the permission to carry his gun wouldn't even be a factor in his mind when he wasn't planning to live long enough to face justice either way.
Yeah, criminals that go on to shoot people, like to shoot innocent people, you really think they're gonna wait for a permit to like be able to legally hold a gun? Like if they have the gun and they want to shoot up a school, they plan on going to jail anyway. Not having a permit is not gonna stop them. Or they're gonna kill themselves, yeah.
When the 10th of June 2025 came around, Arthur decided that he was ready to carry out his plan. In preparation, he wrote a few goodbye notes to his family and filmed a video for his mother. In the video, he explained to her that he was going out to attack his old school. He told her that he hadn't been forced into the attack by anyone else and that he was acting of his own free volition. He said, "This is of my own free will," and asked her to take care of his cat. In the video, he provided no explanation whatsoever as to why he was carrying out the attack, what he hoped to accomplish, or even what had motivated him. Arthur then threw his guns, a hunting knife, and hundreds of rounds of ammunition into his backpack and left the house. He walked to a nearby train station and made his way out to the stop nearest to the school. He then walked the rest of the way there. Along the way, he sent the video he had recorded for his mother to her. Unfortunately, she wouldn't see it for another 24 minutes. Arthur arrived at the school. Around that time, between 350 to 400 people, including teachers and students, were present in the building. At 9:43 a.m., he entered into the school through the building's main entrance with his backpack full of weaponry. He walked up to the third floor of the school and went into the men's bathroom. He sat down in a toilet in the stall and began to gear up. He took out his shotgun that he had sawed off and his pistol. He then put on a pair of shooting glasses and a headset, as well as a belt to hold his hunting knife.
Ah, shit. Here we go. Let's hope that not a lot of people die. He did it in 2025. Oh, so this is really recent. 2025 is when this happened. Only a year ago, right? Yeah, it's August 2026.
Arthur then hopped onto the trend of mass shooters taking a picture of their legs as they sit in a bathroom stall before their attack. Much like Samantha Rupnow, Solomon Henderson, and Dylan Butler, he uploaded this picture to social media. This shows that, at least in part, he may have been inspired by these killers in particular.
We didn't get into it, probably because there's not enough information on this. But if he's doing this, like if he was that deep into like the trends that killers are doing, like AKA posting pictures of their feet in the bathroom stall before they commit their shooting, he was probably on 4chan. Like he was probably on Kiwi Farms or something in these weird communities once again.
He may have been inspired by these killers in particular. He uploaded the picture to his X account, which notably also featured a profile of Dylan Klebold with no caption at all. It was now just before 9:57 a.m. and he left the bathroom. Arthur made his way toward a classroom on the second floor and began his rampage. He started by firing upon several fifth-year students at the school in his old classroom. After shooting at over a dozen students, he decided it was time for the next phase of his plan. He then made his way up to the third floor of the school. Here he made his way towards another classroom he wanted to target. A teacher nearby, a man named Paul Nietzsche, heard the previous gunshots, not knowing exactly what they were. He came out from where he was working to see Arthur standing at the doorway to one of the classrooms. The door was locked, but Arthur wasn't deterred from making his way inside. He pulled up his shotgun and began firing at the lock on the door over and over again. The teacher saw this, with Arthur not noticing his presence at all. He later told the media, notably mistaking his shotgun for a rifle. He was trying to shoot the door open with his rifle. He was busy, and I didn't look around much either. I didn't hang around. As Arthur continued to try and open the lock on the door, his mother finally opened the video he had sent to her before. After hearing what he had to say, she immediately called the police. By now, it was far too late and several people had already died, with many more having been injured. Arthur finally opened the door to the classroom after repeatedly firing at the lock. Once he made his way inside, he began firing at the seventh-year students indiscriminately, hitting many of them. By now, Arthur had fired both of his guns a total of at least 40 times altogether. The police got their first call from within the school at around 10:06. They dispatched a total of 300 officers among several different units to the scene, along with 160 paramedics and firefighters. It was only about 1 minute before the sirens could be heard approaching the school. Even though Arthur still had plenty of ammunition at his disposal, he decided to end the attack then and there. It has been speculated that this was due to the police presence. At 10:07, he made his way back into the men's bathroom where he had begun his attack with his handgun. He sat back down in the stall and ended his attack in the same place that it had started. The police and the paramedics made their way into the school.
Wait, did he off himself? Yeah. Somebody said rest in peace to everybody that died. I was waiting to see if they're going to say names. Like, if they're going to say names and the amount of people that died.
Quickly finding out that the attack had already finished. They found all of the dead and Arthur himself by 10:13 a.m. The school was evacuated in less than 20 minutes after their entry. A disaster alert was sent to nearby hospitals, notifying them of the dozens of injured people who would be heading their way. Students who were still at the school were sent to a nearby building to wait to be reunited with their families. All in all, the shooting had lasted about 7 minutes in total. During that time, roughly 40 shots had been fired. The number of the dead and the injured has varied greatly depending on the source. Anywhere from 11 to 30 students were said to have been injured. When it comes to how many died during the attack, the number is usually stated to be either 9 or 10, excluding Arthur himself.
Oh, so that's the confirmation right there that Arthur did indeed off himself at the very end, like a fucking pussy, like a coward. But yeah, 10 or what did he say, 9 or 10? 9 or 10 passed away. So yeah, rest in peace to those 9 or 10 individuals, yeah. And then it said like 11 through 30 might have been injured, which is a big range.
The actual numbers
rest in piss, Arthur.
Seems to be 9, according to the release of later obituaries and the lack of speculation as to who the 10th victim would have been. Those who died were Pauline Hofbauer, 14 years old, Lucia Hayden, Leah Bajrami, Hannah Akmajic, and Annabella Bernhardt, all 15 years old, Leonie Kobrel, 16 years old, Leo Capillaro and Kaid Yasharevich, both 17 years old, and finally Dorit Marina Weiner, Arthur's old teacher. It was also stated by the media that Arthur knew one more of the victims, saying that one of the female students was actually his upstairs neighbor.
Yeah, once again, rest in peace to all of them. Like, yeah, obviously they're all going to be really young. I mean, they were all in that school, so...
Police quickly identified the shooter as being a 21-year-old former student, but they only released his first name and last initial. They kept everything about his identity a very closely guarded secret, lying to the media and saying that he didn't have any social media presence whatsoever. Many people from Graz were called to donate blood for the victims. Hundreds of people turned out to do so. It was during the initial media frenzy that Arthur's old friend, Sebastian, heard about what had happened on the news. He said, "When I heard about it, I texted him on WhatsApp and asked if he was hurt. There was no reply. The news came out that evening, and then the photo. That's when we found out. We haven't even processed it yet." The police soon made their way out to Arthur's home where they conducted a raid. They then took his mother in for questioning.
I think he had to have been radicalized by some like online group, I think. Bro does not deserve anonymity. You're right, but I think maybe I can think of why the government or like why the police department would want to be a little secretive at first. Maybe they want to release all of the information at once and not let people speculate on the motive and stuff. That could be a smart play, like, because, you know, sometimes people get too carried away with speculating about what the reason was for the shooting. Or like, and bro, I mean, you see how right-wingers are. Like, they see long hair and shit, they think like, oh, it was a trans shooter, it was like some radical left communist. That's probably why you would want to withhold as much information as possible so that people can't speculate and make rumors and try to make a spectacle out of this very tragic and serious situation. Yeah.
After the shooting, the Austrian government declared 3 days of national mourning. That morning, they held a nationwide moment of silence at 10 a.m. Chancellor Christian Stalker called the shooting an unfathomable tragedy and said, "It affects all of us as a society." The governor of Styria gave his condolences to the victims, the injured, and their families and thanked the emergency services. All public events were canceled in the country. The day after, 11 people were still in the hospital. Some of them were critically injured, but they were said to have been in stable condition. The police's reluctance to share Arthur's identity with the public immediately led to problems. Given that they had only given the name Arthur A. and stated that he was of mixed Austrian and Armenian heritage, this led to anyone who fit that bill being harassed by the masses. One man in particular who shared that name and lived in the same area was hit very hard. An online witch hunt against him and his family began almost immediately after the shooting. This Arthur A. was older, a father, and, most notably of all, alive, but that didn't stop the mob from coming after him.
That's scary, bro. Imagine something like that happens around you, like some big shooting, and people are thinking it was you and you're getting attacked and shit. Like, oh God. Like all of a sudden you're getting this wave of hate from people thinking that you did one of the worst things you can do, which is like shoot up a school and kill children. Yeah, dude, that actually sounds terrifying for this father. Prayers for him. Yeah, hopefully everything was all right for him and his family.
But they didn't stop the mob from coming after him. French broadcasters even used his photo on the internet and used it when talking about the shooter in the news, leading to many more death threats. Even his own friends turned against him, still not taking into account that the shooter was dead and that he was still very much alive to respond to them.
Bro, what? His own friends turned on him.
Eventually, this man had to plead for help from an Austrian broadcasting company. He said, "My friends are being contacted, telling them how sick it is that it's me, even though they know me too. Even people who know me personally think it's me because so many pictures of me have been sent out. I've received death threats." His whole family was forced to sleep in a different place each night, getting no help at all from the police. The Austrian police, like in many similar cases, simply told him that the threats were only verbal and that they couldn't do anything until something had already happened. The man said, "The police could only tell me that they could record the incident, but they couldn't offer me any protection because nothing had happened yet. They can only offer me protection once something has happened."
Sorry, sir, you have to get shot at and possibly die before we can protect you. Like, at that point, your protection doesn't mean anything. Like, the harm is already done. Like, the fuck?
Still, even seeing the real harm that it was causing, the police remained very tight-lipped about the actual identity of the attacker. Even to this day, despite coming to have given up a lot of information about him, they still have never officially stated Arthur's last name. It finally came down to internet sleuths to get his full name and real picture more widespread, which gradually led to the hate mob dying down. With more about Arthur's identity known, the media began to try and piece together his motive. One magazine, Kronen Zeitung, published unverified claims that Arthur had been bullied without citing their sources. Despite this lack of citation, many other publications ran with the claim as well, saying that Arthur had been motivated by a desire for revenge.
Fucking media, dude. So irresponsible. How the fuck you gonna do that with no facts? That's not even real journalism at that point. Like, how you gonna call yourself a journalism agency and you're not even doing like the bare minimum level of research? They just pulled that out for a story. Exactly. Somebody in chat said that. They were just like, oh, what can we do to spice things up a little bit? Oh yeah, let's look at every other mass shooting in history and, you know, pull out the bullying card. Let's just say he was bullied by his classmates and he had no friends and that's why he killed people. Like,
some reporters did take a stand, saying that these claims had originated from social media rumors and hadn't been verified, but the information was more or less treated as fact. After all, it wouldn't be the first time that a school shooter had been bullied by any means, and it definitely offered some explanation as to why Arthur had even decided to carry out a shooting. After the claims of bullying surfaced, a few people did show up to corroborate them, although they weren't so conclusive with their claims. One man who knew Arthur in the past said that he had vaguely mentioned being bullied at one point, but he didn't mention any specifics. He said, "He talked about it, but he never mentioned the exact reason for the bullying. I think he decided to end his life and blamed other people for it."
If somebody mentions bullying like that, like super sparingly, especially a kid like this that went out to shoot people, if they don't get into the details, I'm just gonna assume you're telling me that somebody said one mean thing about you, or like somebody went way too far with teasing you and made fun of a little thing. Like, that's not bullying. It can be mean, but bullying it gets into like more severe shit, you know? It's like, it's repeated. Bullying is repeated. I really do think with a kid like this, like, you know, this much of a pussy, I really do think one person maybe said something not nice. That does not count as bullying, bro.
Another student he sat near in his vocational school said that he may have possibly referenced bullying one time. This student said that Arthur told him about his old school. There were some bad people there.
Like, bro, if that's bullying, then I get bullied every day by my chat, by random DMs, by fucking YouTube comment. Like, bro, I'm more bullied probably. That still doesn't justify me doing anything terrible.
Aside from very few, very vague claims, there hasn't been any evidence that Arthur was actually bullied. If anything, it seems that he didn't interact with other students in any way, either positively or negatively, aside from the occasional small talk. Other people who knew Arthur have given their own theories as to why he did what he did. Many of them have come to blame his lack of future prospects. Some of Arthur's previous online friends did note that he felt stressed out from his vocational school and discouraged that he didn't seem to have a future. They felt that his recent complete lack of communication with his friends would have only made things worse. With many different mass shooters, a lack of hope in the future is often a core motivation. Many of them convince themselves that carrying out some sort of attack will give their life meaning in one way or another.
This is dead ass what I was gonna guess. This is one of my leading theories for a lot of these shooters, is that they actually just end up getting super nihilistic. Like they end up adopting a super nihilistic view of their life. I'll use this very shooter as the example. Do you guys recall one of the details being that his life was pretty boring? Like it was a pretty boring life. Like his parents were fine. He lived in like a small town. He wasn't doing good in school, so clearly he didn't really have much of a future. Not a bright future anyway. I mean, yeah, just overall a boring, monotonous life. And I think what happens to people is they get so fucking depressed about life, I guess, because it's so boring. Every day's the same. Some people, like this kid, for some reason find it in themselves to be like, oh, I know what will solve this. I know what will make me feel a little bit of adrenaline, causing other people pain, causing other people misery. They become hateful. In some cases, they become racist. In some cases, they go down like these white supremacist rabbit holes because they just want to feel a sense of community. They just want to feel things, bro. Like they want to feel understood and shit. That's my take on a lot of these shooters. It's nihilism, depression, monotonous lifestyle, boring lifestyle, and they just, yeah.
Will give their life meaning in one way or another. Still, even if this theory makes sense, there is also no proof that this was Arthur's major motivating factor either. With the lack of a solid motive, many people began to come up with their own theories as to why the shooting had happened, and most just simply blamed it on the groups they disliked the most. Some blamed the attack on incel culture, saying that Arthur had only targeted women. This was flat out false, as Arthur did kill boys, and the fact that more girls died than boys seems to be nothing more than a coincidence. As stated, 2 of the boys did die, and even more were injured. Arthur was also never known to have participated in any incel group at all, and never expressed support for any of their ideology. Others came to blame the far right and claimed that the attack was a white supremacist attack on immigrants. This claim also held no weight at all. While one victim was dressed in a hijab and another had darker skin, most of the victims would have been immediately assumed to have been white. There is also no evidence that Arthur was involved in politics of really any sort.
That makes it more disgusting that journalism agency just spit out some bullshit saying that he was bullied. Literally no evidence exists anywhere of him being tied to any kind of political movement, any kind of hateful group. There was no evidence about bullying. So like, why would you just jump out and say he was bullied? That almost comes across like that journalism newspaper agency was like trying to protect him in a way, justify his actions a little bit. Like, oh yeah, this is why he did it, guys. Like, no, I think he did it for no fucking reason, actually. That's what all the evidence is showing right now. Like,
the police came to say that after going through all of the final notes that Arthur left behind, they were still left with no answers. The Director General for Public Security, Franz Ruf, had confirmed this. He said that the notes were merely goodbye messages and gave no insight into what Arthur was actually thinking. In a note to his parents, he did apologize for the attack, but that was about it. Members of the government came to say that any motive behind the attack was pure speculation. After not too long, they came to the conclusion that Arthur had acted alone and hadn't involved anyone else in his plans. He hadn't even told anyone about them or so much as hinted towards them. The most they could argue was that he used photos of Dylan Klebold on social media and posted a picture of his guns on Tumblr. While that is alarming in hindsight, it's far from the first time someone on the internet has been edgy with that sort of thing. Even with so little information about Arthur being released and no ideology or motive being established, the attack still went on to inspire others. As with many other mass shootings, other troubled youth don't necessarily need to know why the attack happened or what the killer believed. They just needed to know that committing this sort of attack was possible in the first place. On the 11th of June, a large number of bomb threats were sent to different schools and train stations all throughout Austria via email. Some of these were even sent to other schools in the Graz area, one of which was a kindergarten.
Hey, quick thing. Austria is beautiful. I'm not even kidding. I'm not just saying this. I've already been planning on visiting Austria. Like, Austria is a very beautiful country. Vienna's in Austria, right? I want to go there. Dude, this is so pretty. Vienna. I want to go there. Yeah, Austria is very beautiful.
Police were dispatched all around the country to deal with the threats. At one point, the police even claimed to have stopped a copycat crime in progress. One day later, 3 schools in the area had to be evacuated due to credible threats. Over a period of days, 30 false alarms related to threats on schools in the Graz area would come to take place. Some of those who made the threats, such as a 19-year-old male, were caught and jailed. On the 23rd of June, the school finally reopened, although by this point there were only 2 more weeks left in the school year. The main areas where the attack took place were still closed off, with some of those classes being held in trailers outside of the school. Psychological counseling was offered for the students who decided to come back for those last couple of weeks. Copycat criminals weren't even the only bad actors who came to appear after the shooting. Another was a 33-year-old woman from Leibniz who claimed to have set up a donation fund for the victims on the day of the shooting. She had lied and claimed to have been an immediate family member of one of the dead children, despite being completely unrelated to anyone in the case.
Did she use this moment to steal money from people who were wanting to help the family? Bro.
She managed to raise about 37,000 euros, but it was found that she had actually just kept all the money for herself. She was arrested in September of 2025 for this, and it was found that she had also engaged in about 23,000 euros worth of welfare fraud as well. Her identity has not been made public. A couple of months later in November, the parents of 7 of the kids who died during the attack announced that they were planning to sue the Austrian government over what they called faults in the old law for obtaining firearms. The lawsuit was cancelled the next day when the government agreed to open a 20 million euro fund to provide them with compensation for their pain and suffering, as well as to cover therapy and physical treatment costs for those involved.
A government that responds to criticism and then gives the people what they want. You know, they help you with therapy and stuff. America, take fucking notes after so many school shootings, bro.
In February of 2026, the Minister of the Interior, along with a victims' rights organization, urged the Austrian media to be more careful about exposing the identities of the victims in these crimes, saying that one family learned about their daughter's death before the police had even notified them. Many felt that this was more the fault of the police. Ironically, it draws parallels to Columbine, in which the families of the deceased weren't notified that their child had passed until almost 48 hours later. In that case as well, one family first knew that their son had died by seeing a photo of his body published by the media before the police had even bothered to talk to them. The Styria police recommended that the government take more oversight over the media, saying that their extensive reporting on Arthur's background had led to copycat crimes. They ignored that their adamant refusal to give details about the shooter led to others with similar names and backgrounds being harassed and threatened with death, and they ignored that the copycat crimes began taking place before any significant details about the shooter were known. That same month, the school was closed down for an extensive renovation. This was mainly done in order to rebuild the classrooms where the carnage had taken place. It has been said that they will be turned into a memorial area that will feature multi-faith places of worship. To this day, we know very little about Arthur.
I like that. That's good from the community.
After multi-faith places of worship. To this day, we know very little about Arthur Leitner, and it's fairly likely we never will. Arthur never left behind a manifesto. He didn't leave behind any significant video of himself. He rarely posted online, and when he did, it wasn't in relation to his plans for the attack. Even in his own final messages, he failed to provide any information beyond the fact that he worked alone. Regardless of how the police feel about giving more details about him, there simply just doesn't appear to be any content that existed to even be released. With Arthur producing no writings himself and leaving behind very little in the form of an online footprint, there is very likely nothing at all that could be released that would shine more light on what he was thinking. He will almost certainly forever remain a mystery. What we do know is that he committed the deadliest rampage in modern Austrian history.
I think.
Once again, thank you for watching my video.
The closing thoughts. I think the most contentious part of this video was probably how police and law enforcement handled the information around the case, like how they kept things overly private, they didn't release anything to the public, and how there's like pros and cons to doing that. The good side of withholding a lot of information about the shooter whenever a mass shooting happens is that it stops speculation, it stops people from turning it into a spectacle, it stops people from assigning political ties to the shooter just based on how they look and shit. On the other side, on the negative side, we saw what happened from keeping so much stuff a secret. An innocent man got harassed, as well as his family. He got death threats. His best friends left him because people thought that he was the shooter. Because of how little information they had on the shooter and they only had his name, some other guy with a similar name got fucked because of it. He got like super messed up. You guys let me know like what you prefer. Like what I think honestly I would prefer, like if you're gonna keep it secret, you have to keep it 100% secret. That's my take. Like I'm actually not opposed to keeping things a secret, But you can't, if you're gonna keep it a secret, you can't just give out the name then. If you give out the name, you might as well just give out a picture and stuff like that, because it opens up the possibility for a mix-up to happen and for people to get harassed and shit. That's where they fucked up. They gave the name and then nothing else. So if you're gonna keep it a secret, keep it a 100% secret. And then like, yeah, if you're gonna give some information, give all the information that you know. Just make sure you remind people to not get carried away with shit, because, you know, it's an ongoing investigation. Do not turn this into a spectacle, into a political thing or whatever. Yeah. So that's that. Rest in piss to Arthur, that Arthur fuck. Low-key an unsolved case because they were never able to find out a motive. I'm gonna go ahead and say he didn't have a motive. I really do believe he was just a nihilistic person and he just wanted to feel something. I'm not kidding. Like some people literally just do things like this, atrocities like this, for no reason. Sometimes you just gotta accept that, which is sad, you know? Everybody wants to have a specific thing to point to for being the reason. I genuinely think this guy was just like a nihilistic person that was tired of life and he wanted to go out with a bang. Like he wanted to commit suicide, but he wanted to take people with him. And then yeah, rest in peace to all of the victims, very young, all of them. I believe it was 9 or 10 that died. Rest in peace to them, and then prayers to the families, to the injured, to the 11 to 30 people that were injured. And then yeah, hopefully Austria is recovering from this, because once again, it's a beautiful country. I'm sure the people there are all wonderful. I want to visit there in the future, so really sad for Austria. That's it. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate it, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace out.